been made more successful by the idea of heroes fighting one another. But who really wins when it's good versus good? Welcome back, Nerd Squad. It's me, Amanda. Which superheroes do you think have the greatest rivalry? Number 10. Batman and Green Lantern. Guy isn't the only person who has a problem with Batman, and vice versa. Many Green Lanterns seem to rub the Dark Knight the wrong way. I think it's because he doesn't trust the amount of power they are given, and perhaps the process in which, they're chosen. Batman has also been shown to have disagreements with Hal Jordan's Green Lantern in the past, and demonstrate a lack of trust in him, despite his accolades. Although, I guess with Hal's track record, that's kind of fair. In the world of Frank Miller's All-Star Batman and Robin, Batman even straight up attacks Hal when he criticizes Batman, exploiting his, at the time, weakness to the color yellow. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love big superhero rivalries, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9. Deadpool and Wolverine. Another classic feud is one between Deadpool and Wolverine. I love this one. This pretty much has to do with Wolverine being one of the most serious guys around, and Wade being pretty much a complete goof all the time, who sometimes also just happens to be not very good at what he does. Whereas by contrast, Wolverine is very good at what he does. Although what both of these two anti-hero-ish characters often do isn't very nice. Deadpool and Wolverine have been forced to team up on a few occasions, and it's always fun to watch them do so because, they're both so different. And yet in some ways, they're also kind of similar, even though I feel like Wolverine would not admit that. Last time I saw them team up in the comics was in X-Force, where Deadpool ended up mainly acting as comic relief despite his intentions to prove himself to the rest of the team and prove that he deserved his place among them. Number 8. Human Torch and the Thing. Talk about some brotherly love and also some brotherly chaos. This is exactly what Human Torch aka Johnny Storm and the Thing aka Ben Grimm of the Fantastic Four have going on. These two love to fight and compete with one another and pull pranks whenever they can get away with it. But at the end of the day, their rivalry is really all fun and laughs. For the most part, it seems they enjoy pushing one another's buttons because they know each other so well and love each other so much. And obviously if you know someone really well and you love them really well, you're probably pretty good at pushing their buttons when you want to. It's maybe the cutest and most earnest kind of sibling superhero rivalry on this list, despite the fact that yes, Johnny and Ben aren't blood-related siblings. Being part of the Fantastic Four though does mean being part of a family. Number 7. Spider-Man and Wolverine. Spider-Man and Wolverine have an even deeper rivalry, probably because they have even less in common, it would seem, on the outside than even the bizarre duo of Logan and Wade. Logan and Wade actually at least have some shared experience in acting as mercenaries and both having their heads scrambled by people, and they've both been known to behave like anti-heroes, whereas Spider-Man and Wolverine are almost kinda on two opposite sides when it comes to their approach to heroics. The one thing they seem to share though, I will say, is that their heart is definitely both in the right place. But just like Daredevil and Punisher, and even more so perhaps, these two struggle to see eye to eye when it comes to their approach and ideology in regards to how best to be a superhero and their heroic tactics. Number 6. Hulk and Bruce Banner. These two were really at odds recently in Donny Cates' Hulk series, and their history has been a tumultuous one, with sometimes the Hulk or Bruce being painted as the villain and the other being painted as the hero. However, in reality, both Bruce Banner and the Hulk have acted as heroes before, and also acted as villains, and they've also even worked together before. In Immortal Hulk, they seem to find some sense of balance and harmony, but this didn't end up lasting too long, as Bruce then turns on the Hulk personas within himself, imprisoning the Hulk to use him as an engine for his space adventures. Odds are good, no matter how many times these two end up making peace with one another, that they will eventually always return to butting heads at some point. Number 5. Miss Marvel and Rogue. Back when Miss Marvel was none other than Carol Danvers, of course. These two women had a long-standing rivalry because of how much Rogue really messed Carol up. Rogue not only stole Carol's powers, but also left her comatose, and upon recovery without much of her memories and emotional connections to her memories. At the same time, this wasn't exactly a walk in the park for Rogue either, who also didn't much care for Carol, as Carol's own memories and psyche basically haunted Rogue as a result of their altercation. For a while, these two really did not like and even hated each other. The good news is Carol would actually have nothing to fear from Rogue now, as Rogue has much better control over her powers and doesn't really need to worry much anymore about accidentally draining someone's memories, life force energy, or even accidentally their powers. Number 4. Wolverine and Cyclops. Even more iconic than any other superhero rivalry involving Wolverine is probably the one between him and Cyclops. Now, you You could chalk this one up to the fact that Logan is just hot-tempered at times and stubborn, and therefore he just, doesn't often get along well with others. But really, when it comes to these two, it's actually all about the approach to heroism and breaking rules versus playing by them. Which oddly enough doesn't always mean that each person is always advocating for the same principle between those two, but they generally tend to be on opposite sides regardless. For example, if Wolverine is arguing that breaking the rules is the right play, then Slim is usually arguing against that, and vice versa. At the same time, their rivalry is also quite brotherly at times, and at the end of the day, probably a lot like Cap and Iron Man. These two men respect one another, and despite their infighting, often would consider the other a part of their family. Number 3. Batman and Superman. These two are often thought of as being the best of friends, and well, they are. But that doesn't mean that they don't have fights and that they don't have any beef with each other at any point. In fact, in some realities, the differences between them lead the two to become sworn enemies, as opposed to staying the best of friends. The best thing about these two heroes is in fact how different they both are to one another, and perhaps what has made their rivalry and friendship so strong throughout the years and throughout DC's multiverse is that they both see how much they are different from the other. In some cases, they deeply respect and admire the other's differences. In other cases, it actually leads them to try and break their once fellow colleague, unable to reconcile and accept the other's differences or mindset. Number 2. Iron Man and Captain America. This one feels like a feud as old as time. It's at least as old as these characters are. And in fact, while it does have a long history, it's still relevant today. Captain America and Iron Man clashed during the first Civil War, most iconically, but even recently have been seen at odds with one another following the events of AXE Judgment Day. While Captain America was deemed unworthy by the progenitor, Iron Man's Tony Stark was given a thumbs up instead, leaving the pair to bicker over the judgments and what they truly meant, if anything. During Judgment Day, issue number 6, Tony asked Cap after the event, "Are you okay?" with Cap responding, "No, and we shouldn't feel okay. It was a wake-up call. We should all pay attention and act." Tony clarifies, "No, I don't mean that. I meant me passing and you failing. That must be hard for you." Steve pointedly responds by saying, "You made the Celestial. It was based on you, and it tried to kill the Earth, and you're taking its opinion as meaning anything?" Once again and always, opposite sides. Number 1. Black Panther and Namor. While Iron Man and Captain America may have a more iconic feud in the comics and films, Black Panther and Namor have one that not only is between them, but also extends to their nation. And theirs has actually resulted in all-out war, not just in the superhero community, but in terms of their own countries as well. This feud actually started, as most do in comics, as a misunderstanding. But as a result of that, both of their peoples began to mistakenly attack one another, and Black Panther and Namor basically started to watch out for the other person. Eventually, it got to the point that they can no longer let bygones be bygones and talk it out. In the film Wakanda Forever, we see this feud making its way to the big screen, with tensions rising between Shuri's Black Panther and Namor of the Talokan, as well as, Wakanda and the Talokan. I feel like overall superhero rivalries are something that can be easily leveraged by villains to distract superheroes enough to give them the freedom they need to unleash their devious plots on the world. And until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.